And we'll be bringing you more details of the arrest of the chief executive of UT Bank, Prince Kofi Amoabeng, as well as that of chief executive of Beige Bank, Mr. Hinaku, who tried to actually work on some bill and he didn't actually sail through. But before we get you those updates, let's settle for this particular story. And did you know that quails gain maturity faster than any other poultry birds? A wild bird originally from Japan lays more than 300 eggs in the first year of higher than chickens. But does it actually, or doesn't incubate them? Alberta Bisu visited a female quail farmer, Mirabelle Halassan, and she says that she makes not less than 15 Ghana cedis each crate of egg that is actually sold.
So this structure, in some few months, will become a big quail farm for an entrepreneur. She started in her small room, but she's hoping to expand her business. You want to find out from her how she's cashing in despite this uncompleted building. Mirabelle is a filmmaker, but hopes to make her quail farming a permanent business after experiencing substantial growth in sales barely a year after she started her business.
Anytime, anywhere, I'll do. Oh, yes.
An estimated 1.4 billion quails are farmed annually for their meat and eggs, with over 80% produced in China. However, in Ghana, the business is gradually catching up.
From it on, I've realized that yes, I really am interested in the farming. So within the next 5 years, I'm looking at myself as to be known as one of the best quail farmers in the country, because there's a ready market. Once you are forceful and you want to do business.
Mirabelle says she's hoping to expand her business and also train individuals who are interested in the quail farm.
So I'm looking at maybe exporting some of the quail eggs and exporting the meat as well, and helping people to start the quail farming if they are interested.
Mirabelle is urging government to explore the poultry business. She's also encouraging every individual interested in the farming business, as she rates it as the best business which generates good income.
The government can leverage on this farming, because with poultry, it's a bit expensive, but with quail farming, it's not so much like that. So the youth who are unemployed, not only the youth, people can do it as side jobs. You don't need much.
Despite their commercial benefits, quail eggs are said to have some health benefits. They are high in nutrients and good source of protein for people who are allergic to chicken. So out of curiosity, Mirabelle gets about 3 crates within a day from quail farming. She tells me it has been a very good business for her, and she's entreating everyone who is interested in quail farming to also enter into this business. Alberta Bisu, reporting for Joy Business.
Maybe I will also try it very soon, seeing how lucrative this business is. Well, central banks in the ECOWAS region are holding an emergency meeting in Abuja, Nigeria, over the possible introduction of the single currency, the ECO. Now, the meeting is bringing together governors of the English-speaking countries in the region to look at whether the time is actually right to actually go ahead of this currency or not. Now, some people have varied views about that, thinking that the region is not ready. Others believe that it is about the now. What about those who also argue that there are supposed to be some preconditions in place before we actually go ahead to introduce this currency? Well, we'll go on the line right now and speak to the head of the Accounts Department of the University of Ghana, Lagos, Professor Bob Boateng, to get his thoughts about whether the region is indeed ready for this or not. Good afternoon, Prof, if you can hear me, and you're welcome to the Marketplace with JoyNews channel on Multi TV.
Good afternoon, Prof, if you can hear me, and you're welcome to the Marketplace with channel on Multi TV.
Prof, if you can hear me, I just wanted to find out from you, what do you make of this meeting by the central bank governors on the introduction of the ECO possibly this year? Okay, we'll be getting back to Professor Bob Boateng. He is the head of the Accounts Department of the University of Ghana, Legon, as we get some update on his perspective whether the region is ready for the introduction of the single common currency, that is the eco. But whilst we reconnect to Prof, let's look at some other stories that might be of interest to you. And the total amount of foreign currency accounts held at commercial banks has been declining. Now, latest data from the Bank of Ghana shows that it has reached $4 billion ending October last year. But what does this actually mean for the city's marginal stability? I've been trying to pop up or bring about some analysis for you, the viewers. The Bank of Ghana data puts the total amount of foreign currencies, which is made up of dollars, pounds, euros, and the others, but expressed in cities at around 21 billion Ghana cedis. But for the purpose of this report, and to make it easier for our listeners to appreciate our discussions or report, we want to convert this amount into dollars. Now, that should give us about $4 billion using the Bank of Ghana's rate of 5 Ghana cedis 30 pesos for the month of October last year. Now, that should give us about $4 billion using the Bank of Ghana's rate of 5 Ghana cedis 30 pesos for the month of October last year. Now, the $4 billion amount represents about $200 million decline from the August amount in 2019 down to October 2019. It is not clear for now what might be the reason for this decline, but a careful monitoring of the market development during that period can be attributed to a pickup in demand for dollars by businesses to finance imports to cover up for some of the Christmas festivities. Or it could be that some of these foreign account holders were just depleting their accounts. But whichever way you want to look at that, some would say that $4 billion might still be on the high side. This is because a significant amount of these accounts are not being held for business purposes, but rather those who have gone out there to buy more dollars and open accounts as they move to hedge the city against future depreciations. Some of these practices have put a lot of pressure on the Ghana city, resulting in some serious depreciation against the dollar in the last quarter of every year, so as the first quarter of the next year. The 2020 budget shows that government is setting aside some 20 billion Ghana cedis as interest payments. Now, if the city doesn't stabilize firmly against the dollar in the coming months, that could mean that the amount could increase further. Well, let's return to our earlier story where we understand that central bank governors are currently meeting in Abuja, Nigeria. Call it an emergency meeting over the possible introduction of the single currency that is the eco for this year. The meeting is bringing together the governors of these English-speaking countries in the region, as well as their directors of research and those who are handling their treasury business in the various West African countries. Let's get onto the line and speak to head of the Accounts Department, University of Ghana, Professor Ba Boatin, and let's get his thoughts on whether we are indeed ready for this or not. Prof, let me first find out from you what do you make of this meeting by the central bank governors in trying to chart a path for the introduction of the eco this year?
Well, I think it is something that should start from now. It is important that if we are going to have something like this, then we have to look ahead. But I will be very surprised if the meeting will come out with a decision to introduce the new currency within the next few years. I expect that the foundation has not been well laid out to be able to give it the opportunity to be able to go in that direction. So I see it as a longer term, but not something that is immediate. And I'll be very surprised if something comes up that we are introducing a new currency within the next few years.
But Prof, what kind of foundation are you looking for? I remember as far back as 2000, the heads of state made a commitment that the eco would come into circulation. Last year they met and said that all other things being equal, 2020 the eco will start. What again should be in place for us to introduce this currency?
Interestingly, all other things are not always equal. And for that matter, the foundation has not been well laid out to be able to. I mean, the principle of economics tells you that introduction of common currency, and for that matter, any currency is supposed to be trade, because without trade, currency is just a common paper. And if you go back to evolution of money, there were times where we didn't have anything that is supposed to facilitate transaction, but people were exchanging goods for goods. And there were so many challenges and so on. So people, economists talked about it and realized that we should get something that will facilitate that kind of trade, that kind of exchange. And for that matter, you don't even need to know who holds what, but if you have that kind of paper or whatever it is, you will be able to get what you want. So trade is supposed to be the main foundation of introduction of any common currency. And if you look at West Africa, the 15 countries, the extent to which we trade among ourselves is very limited. The integration is just at the top. With the population, you don't see that kind of integration. It is not easy to travel from here to Cote d'Ivoire or even Burkina Faso or even Togo. And many people are saying that, oh, we have to go the Euro way. Yes, Europe has a common currency, but we should bear in mind that it started a long time before they got to where they are. Now you go to Europe, there's no border anywhere. If you want to travel from Netherlands to Germany, you don't have any physical border. You can move from anywhere, and the trade among themselves is so high that you want something that will facilitate that kind of exchange and avoid any kind of exchange rate and so on. So for them, they got to that point that they needed to introduce that. But we haven't gotten there. So that is one major factor that we need to look at. The second one is that if you consider West Africa, the economies are well varied. If indeed Nigeria accounts for 70% of total GDP, and they account for about 57% of total population, if we don't lay the foundation well, all the countries will be the backyard of Nigeria. And we should bear in mind that there should be a well laid down economic system. The fiscals must be well laid out. Ghana has passed Fiscal Responsibility Act. Government will not want to go to the central bank to borrow up to a certain amount. But we don't have these same systems in other countries. So you expect that we have a common currency, and then some countries are going to bear the brunt. I think we should look at it very well. The other point is that West African countries belong to two major blocks. We have the West African Monetary Zone, which is made up of the English-speaking countries, and then we have the UEMOA. And these UEMOA, let's call them the CFA countries, they are using one common currency, and their monetary policy is tied to the apron string of France. And therefore, it is not easy to bring them on board. And what is the role of France in that respect? And therefore, we have to look at all these challenges and all these obstacles and lay down the foundation very well before we can. Otherwise, we will introduce the ECO, and for me, it will be like a common paper.
Prof, in just a minute, what would be your advice to these central bank governors who are currently meeting in Abuja, Nigeria? Should they go ahead or ensure that the right things are done before we introduce the currency?
My advice is that they should hasten slowly. This meeting should rather let them strengthen the kind of criteria that they've laid out, get countries to be committed to those foundations, and I expect that the criteria should bring on board the trade aspect of it, so that if I can just move from here to Nigeria with my goods without any border closure, then it means that when I go to Nigeria and I want to trade, I need a currency that will facilitate that kind of trade. But if the foundation is not there and you put up a superstructure, it will collapse.
Prof. Bob Boateng is the head of the Econs Department at the University of Ghana, Legon. Thank you so much for those interesting thoughts about the current meeting that is currently ongoing in Abuja, Nigeria, where central bank governors are meeting to see whether the UCO can be introduced or not. Let's return to our earlier story where Chief Executive of defunct UT Bank, Prince Kofi Amabeng, has been arrested over the collapse of the bank. Parker Wilson is my colleague and he's in court right now. Let's get on to him on the line for more details. Parker, can you tell us the exact court that you are and what is happening right now? Parker, if you can hear me, where are you right now? Which court and what is happening right now?
So I'm at the Circuit Court 4, just around the Supreme Court, and the High Court judge who has an additional responsibility of a Circuit Court judge, Emmanuel Istando, just granted bail to the CEO of defunct UT Bank, Prince Kofi Amwabeng, just a while ago. In fact, he's just here with his lawyers, and the argument advanced by lawyer for like this person and here in the person of Prince Kofi Amwabeng is that, I mean, he's been under investigation for the past 3 years now, and he has complied with every single step of the investigation. So he doesn't understand why the investigations haven't concluded, and yet his client has been dragged before the judge, and that he's been to Yoko, he's been to the CID, and he's been very cooperative as far as this issue is concerned. At some point, his passport was seized, it was given to him back, he's been traveling in and out of the country, and so his client has demonstrated that at every point in time when he's being called upon to stand for trial, definitely he'll make himself available. And so the judge has said that he's been convinced by the argument advanced by the lawyer and that he's going to grant him bail, and that is to the tune of 110 million Ghana cedis with 2 sureties. Now, the 2 individuals who stand in as sureties for Prince Kofi Amwabeng should not earn less than 2,000 Ghana cedis. So for now, we know that he's been granted bail, and he's quite happy. His lawyers are trying to get an interview with the lawyer. And of course, when we are able to do that, we'll let you know.
Kwesi, I'll let you go very soon so you can grab that interview. But help us, what charge has been leveled against Prince Kofi Amwabeng for him being caught today?
Right, so 2 charges. 1, money laundering and stealing. In fact, according to the state prosecutors, he misappropriated about 51 million Ghana cedis, dollars actually, and also he some money, according to the state prosecutors, were illegally transferred from his bank to other jurisdiction, which of course constitutes money laundering. So these were the 2 charges against him, which of course he pleaded not guilty to the 2 charges, after which the judge, the lawyer, advanced the argument for which he's been granted bail this afternoon.
Marcus, you help me out also and an update on another issue. We also understand the chief executive of the defunct Beige Bank has also been arrested, or bail has been. Get us some clarity on that one.
Yeah, that's correct. In fact, Prince Kofi Amwabeng and then the CEO of Beige Capital, Martin Yineku, were in court today. And let me say this, that they willingly walked to the court this afternoon upon hearing that they have been summoned to appear before the judge. And so Mark was the first to have advanced his argument, or lawyers for Martiniku were the first to advance the argument and gave almost a similar argument just as the lawyer for Prince Kofi Amwabeng did. But unfortunately for the lawyer for Martiniku, the justice, he wasn't convinced because the case was still ongoing, and that he wasn't convinced that when his client is being called upon at any time to stand for trial, he will make himself available. And as a matter of fact, the judge remanded Martiniku to police custody 1 week into police custody, and said that when they return, that is when he's going to consider whether the bail application as put before the lawyer will be granted. But the lawyer stated emphatically that Martiniku is on police inquiry bail, and he's been cooperating with the police ever since the investigation started. But the judge said he wasn't convinced, and so he's remanded him to police custody for a week. The state prosecutors were quite happy about the situation and are hoping that, of course, going forward, the trial will get to a logical conclusion and they will get to know the outcome of the case.
Interesting developments there. So if I get you right, Hindeku would be sleeping in the police cells today.
Exactly. He will sleep at the police cells today for a week, actually. So between now and Friday. And of course, when he'll be brought back to court on the 22nd this month.
Early days yet, Parker, but what has been the reaction and the mood in court or the court grounds, knowing that this has really been a big issue over the years?
Well, for the lawyer for Makino, he's very disappointed that the judge denied his bail application because he had advanced the argument that the client has been very cooperative as far as this issue is concerned. So he's not too happy. In fact, he sought to plead with the judge to rescind his decision, but the judge insisted that he has to be with the police custody for 1 week. But in court, it was a very calm atmosphere. The lawyers had to just make the argument. The state prosecutors also advanced the argument, and of course leveled the charges against Makino, indicating that his charge is that of stealing and money laundering as well. So for the lawyer for Makino, I mean, he's not happy about it. But for Prince Kofi Amwabeng, he's quite satisfied that at least the judge could grant him the bail application.
Mr. Wilson, we'll be waiting for you here to get those exclusive interviews with the lawyers of these two individuals. Immense thanks for that update. And if you have just joined us, the chief executive of UT Bank, we understand that he has been granted bail, but rather the chief executive of Beige Bank, he might be going to the cell to spend some days and return to court for proceedings to go on. And those were those updates from our correspondent from the court today, giving us those updates. Let's move on to other stories. And Ghana is expected to lead other African countries to discuss securing sustainable funding for infrastructure development on the continent from the UK government. Now, this will happen. The UK Africa Investment Summit 2020 is expected to start from next week in London. We understand President Akufo-Addo will use the opportunity to hold bilateral talks with the minister, that is Prime Minister Boris Johnson, and other UK government officials. Let's hear from the UK High Commissioner who's speaking to my colleague Ibn Sabote about issues about this conference and what should we expect.
With Africa, we're looking to transform the way that we engage with the country, and I hope some of that has been obvious in some of the work that we are doing. As Ghana is moving beyond aid, so too the UK is moving beyond the EU. And at the end of January, we'll be leaving the EU, what we call Brexit, as you know. But as part of that, I'd say that one of the consequences is the UK looking to, I think, evolve how it engages with Africa, how it engages with Ghana, where we have had prosperity and jobs at the core. And we've been making that move through the UK-Ghana Business Council. And we've got some very real examples of changes and investments that have come on the back of it. So, for example, the investments in the airport extension at Kumasi, for example, the investment at hospitals up in Kumasi as well, investments in infrastructure, for example, in water that we're seeing through on the private sector side through Aqua Africa, and a move to have the UK and Ghana work in lockstep on things like digitisation as we see Ordnance Survey come into the country. And this for me is the evolution that I'm talking about. It's much less about aid, in inverted commas, and much more about how do we use the long-term relationship between the UK and Ghana. The UK's commitment to development finance, that's the kind of patient capital that we think will be of benefit to Ghana, deal with some of the longer-term underlying challenges faced here, but to really importantly bring in investment, to bring in jobs, and to kind of grow trade, by which countries actively choose to work with each other. So, my first point really is, as Ghana is driving that agenda, how do we, in the UK, make sure that we work together with Ghana as part of that? And Africa Investment Summit offers a fantastic platform for that. I think, secondly, my point is that, in the UK, we really do want to be leading the way in much of this dialogue. I think that we have now for some time talked about how do we change the narrative of what Africa is as a continent. How do we help tell the story of what Ghana is all about? Too often, I think, as you know, the stories that come from Africa into our Western media are often focused on things around poverty, are often focused around poor governance, or often around security. And whilst in certain parts of the continent those things are undoubtedly real challenges, the true story of Ghana is one of aspiration, it's one of ambition, it's one that is of kind of a shared values and kind of common ambition.
Well, all too soon we have to draw the curtain down on the marketplace. But before we go, there's a quick breaking news that came in that we talked about earlier on. The chief executive of the defunct UT Bank, Prince Kofi Amabeng, who was earlier arrested on charges of money laundering, actually has been granted bail. But we have understand that of the chief executive of Beige Bank, that is Mike Ineku, was remanded. Chief executive of defunct bank, that is the Beige Bank, Ineku, was earlier arrested by the police custody for 1 week. We understand that he was remanded followed dismissal of a bail application by his lawyers, who assured the court that he would cooperate on the ongoing trial. So his request to actually stay that action actually wasn't granted, and he is going to spend some days in cell before his case is heard again. Well, all too soon we draw the curtain down and have a very, very good afternoon. This has been The Marketplace. My name is George Yafe. Have a good afternoon.